Hi everyone, welcome to the presentation of my work on GSR-Net, Graph Super-Resolution Network for predicting high resolution from low resolution functional brain connectomes. This work is part of my research project conducted at Basira Lab by myself and supervised by Dr. Isallari. To visualize fine-grained variations in brain structure and function or boost the accuracy of brain disorder diagnosis, high spatial resolution of MRI data is essential. However, neuroimaging modalities that derive MRI data of high resolution are scarce and costly. Clearly, there is a need for super-resolution algorithms to generate high-resolution MRI data from low-resolution data. Fortunately, in image-based connectomes, this problem has been solved by image super-resolution algorithms, predictive methods that learn how to map a brain intensity image of low resolution to an image of higher resolution. For example, Barami and co-authors proposed an image super-resolution framework that used convolutional neural networks to generate 7T-like MRI images from 3T MRI. On the other hand, super-resolving graph-based connectomes, namely predicting a connectome of low resolution to a connectome of higher resolution, remains largely unexplored. This is because typical image super-resolution algorithms are not easily generalizable to graph-based connectomes due to the complex nature of graph data. It is worth mentioning that two recent pioneering works have tackled the problem of brain graph super-resolution. In the first one, Cengiz and co-authors proposed a framework to predict high-resolution brain networks using hierarchically embedded and aligned multi-resolution neighborhoods. In the second one, Miri and co-authors proposed a framework to predict high-resolution brain networks using unsupervised multi-topology connectional brain template learning. However, both of these works are dichotomized. They are composed of independent blocks, which means they cannot co-learn to better solve the target super-resolution problem. Besides, they both vectorize low-resolution brain graphs in the beginning of the learning process, thereby spoiling the rich topology of the connectome. This brings us to the main purpose of our work. Given a low-resolution connectome, how to devise a systematically unite framework to automatically generate a high-resolution connectome from a low-resolution connectome. To fill this gap, we introduced GSR-Net, Graph Super-Resolution Network, the first super-resolution framework operating on graph structure data that, given a low-resolution brain connectome, generates a high-resolution connectome. We aim to map a connectome CL to a connectome CH. In other words, map the set of nodes VL to VH, in this case from 4 nodes to 6 nodes, and map the set of edges EL to EH, as well as predict the new high-resolution node embeddings matrix XH from the initial identity feature matrix XL. In our proposed GSR-Net framework, firstly, we adopt a U-Net-like architecture based on graph convolution, pooling and unpooling operations specific to non-Euclidean data. The graph U-Net block translates the topological relationships between the nodes in the featureless low-resolution connectome as node embeddings. Secondly, we propose a novel mathematical formulation of a graph super-resolution layer rooted in graph spectral theory. Our graph super-resolution layer learns the topological structure of the high-resolution connectome based on its eigendecomposition. Thirdly, we stack two graph convolutional network layers. This propagates the topological relationships between the new nodes in our super-resolved graph and learn the high-resolution node embeddings. The key idea of our GSR-Net can thus be summarized in 3 key steps. The first one, the graph U-Net block, the second one, our graph super-resolution layer, and the third one, the stacked GCN layers. In the first step, in the absence of original node features, we initially assign identity feature vectors to each brain region of interest, and then leverage the learned local receptive fields to learn node feature representations. Specifically, for each region of interest, we learn a node feature embedding by locally averaging the features of its neighboring nodes based on their connectivity weights. Our GraphU autoencoder is built by stacking 2 encoding modules and 2 decoding modules. An encoding module contains a graph convolutional network layer and a graph pooling layer, and its inverse operation is a decoding module comprised of a graph convolutional network layer and a graph unpooling layer. Here we integrate a self-reconstruction loss that guides the learning of node feature embeddings for each region of interest in the low-resolution connectome. In the second step, we propose our graph superresolution layer. To define our graph superresolution layer, we leverage the spectral upsampling concept to expand the size of graph while exploiting the local information of the node and the global structure of the graph with the spectrum of its graph Laplacian. The following figure is going to illustrate the formulation of the propagation rule. To enforce the eigendecomposition of the high-resolution graph Laplacian to match that of the target high-resolution graph, we formalize the learnable parameters in this GSR layer as a matrix W of dimensions nk by nk, where k is the superresolution factor. For this reason, here we add the eigendecomposition loss. We aim to minimize the mean squared error between the weights and the eigenvectors of the ground truth high-resolution graph. This makes sure that while superresolving, we preserve the global structure of the high-resolution brane graph. We further incorporate SD, the concatenation of 2 identity matrices of dimensions n by n to regulate the dimensionality of our multiplication rule. To propagate information on the global structure of the low-resolution brane graph, we incorporate UL, the eigenvector matrix of the low-resolution brane graph with n by n dimensions. In the illustration, you can also see the classic graph Laplacian decomposition equation. We include XL to propagate the node embeddings XL of the low-resolution connectome learned in the first step. In the end, our graph superresolution layer generates a high-resolution graph with the connectivity matrix AH of dimensions nk by nk. In our third and final step, we learn more representative ROI-specific feature embeddings of the super-resolved graph by stacking 2 additional GCNs. The output of this third step constitutes the final prediction of the GSRNet of the high-resolution connectome from the input low-resolution connectome. Finally, the training process for our GSRNet is primarily guided by the super-resolution loss, which minimizes the mean squared error between our super-resolved brane connectomes and the ground truth high-resolution ones. The total loss can be computed by adding the super-resolution loss, eigendecomposition loss, and self-reconstruction loss. To conduct experiments, we used 277 subjects from the Southwest University Longitudinal Imaging Multimodal Study. For each subject, 2 separate functional brain networks with 160 and 268 resolutions were produced using 2 distinct group-wise whole brain parcellation approaches. We used 5-fold cross-validation for evaluation and benchmarked against several variants of GSRNet. In the figure, we plot the MICCAI results for each of the 3 baseline methods and our proposed GSRNet. Our GSRNet achieves the best super-resolution performance. In the GSR layer, we remove both the graph UNet and the stacked GCN layers. In Deep GSR, we stack 2 GCN layers in the beginning, feed the output into a GSR layer, and stack 2 additional GCNs. In GSR autoencoder, we remove only the additional GCN layers. Here in the left, we display the predicted high-resolution graph matrix for the first variant, GSR layer, and in the right, we display the residual matrix, the error between ground truth and predicted high-resolution graph. We can see how the residual error decreases with each method. Deep GSR, GSR autoencoder, GSRNet, which clearly achieves the lowest residual error. It is visibly the most similar variant to ground truth. In our work, we introduced GSRNet, the first geometric deep learning framework for super-resolving low-resolution functional brain connectomes. Our method circumvented the need for costly data collection and manual labeling of anatomical brain regions. We proposed topology-based feature updating, as well as presented a novel graph super-resolution layer. Future work includes refining our spectral upsampling theory towards fast computation, super-resolving connectomes that represent other connectivity measures, and extending its applicability to large-scale multi-resolution brain connectomes. Thank you for your attention.